Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Ears to the East, where we're finally being true to our name and talking a little bit more about a broader perspective of these, namely actually Korea. And a big part of this was the fact that after a long time of saying I would have finally been slowly getting to hear more of Rolling Quartz, but we were also talking about there's just a lot of Korean bands who we've come across before. But I think Rolling Quartz is a really interesting one because all three of us have a perspective on it. We're all in different places in our Rolling Quartz journey. And this is a band who have connected to a lot of people. A lot of people seem to be really hyped about this band. Even though they've been around for a few years, they seem to really be on the hype train at the moment. So yeah, I thought this would be a good time to really delve in and actually start sharing opinions, because I don't think the three of us have ever really talked about Rolling Quartz on this channel before.
I've mentioned it a few times in prior videos.
An episode about, I think, Korean music. Maybe it was mentioned there.
But we were too general. We need to dive in with a passion and perspective. So Neon.
I was going to say. So
Neon is the one who knows the most.
I've been listening to Rolling Quartz now for probably a fair few years. They're always one of those bands that are on my periphery. But what I really love about them, again, you guys kind of, Howard's a little bit new. I believe Benedict's like
also
doesn't know fuck all, pretty much.
2 songs.
2 songs. Oh, there you go. That's almost the same knowledge as Howard. I think 3, isn't it, for you?
I have more of a general sort of like weird history of knowing about them, kind of like as a presence, but really diving into them. Yeah, only 3 songs have I had a proper dive into.
Yeah.
But how many songs do they have? Because I know the last one, I think the latest they checked out is the 3rd single. So
yeah, they got they actually got a fair few, to be honest, and all of them are pretty decent. I mean, for me, the draw of Rolling Quartz is oh God, how do I say this like in the best well-mannered
I get possible. The feeling I know what your draw to Rolling Quartz is. Don't worry, I've seen the videos, man.
Yeah, we've all seen the videos. Sorry, like don't look at me like that, viewer. We all know why you're here. But yeah, the girls are absolutely fabulous, and that's a large draw from them. Like we've many a times we've turned around and said, look, K-pop it's one of those things where it's a little bit repetitive. The scene is kind of all the same. The music is still great, but it's definitely on a bit of a rinse and repeat cycle at the minute, where it's not really developing into something new. And this is where, like, for me, Rolling Quartz really step out. They take that rock element and they slap that Korean J-pop flavor all over it to create
Korean J-pop flavor.
Sorry, K-pop flavor. I'm so used to saying J-pop. I do apologize. That's going to happen. So if I say it again,
we're institutionalized here.
I know. Institutionalized. So when you see Rolling Quartz, they've got that K-rock with that K-pop. And it's such a beautiful blend, and what really strikes out to me from a visual perspective is these girls all have attitude. They are all stunningly good looking, by the way, and they've all come together to create...
We got to it eventually.
There we go. That was the nicest way I could have said that. And believe me, I want to go into so much more detail.
Please don't.
Let's not. Move on.
But yeah,
watch Cyberly Dancer's video for details.
It's gonna be one of those episodes.
Playlist of favorites. But I think it's fair that despite the look, no one would deny after hearing them, which I was so pleased about, their sheer credibility as a band.
Yeah, I mean that's the best thing. They come together and the music is absolutely great. It's hard hitting as well. What I really like about them as well is they don't give up on their I want to say style, because it is distinctly different. They don't go too hardcore. They don't go too over the top. They know what they want. Look? No, their sound as well. I think they have this very pleasant. They keep it self-contained. They know what they're going to do. They're there to to visually please, but also to please you with their sound as well. And they don't feel like they need to go into like the territories like we probably say with other bands. I think like if we were talking about, I don't know, like Bandmate, for instance, when you think about some of the most chaotic songs and you think, oh, that's distinctly Bandmate. It never feels like Rolling Quartz needs to go.
I do agree with that, but that's also one thing that I don't really like about Rolling Quartz that much. To me, that's actually something that I'm missing a bit in their music compared to some other things. But yeah, it's a personal preference.
Like I said, I actually really quite like it though. I think
the argument is prepped up and ready to go.
There we go. We're locked and loaded. It's one of those things.
I wanted to ask you, like, because they describe themselves as a rock group, a K-rock group. So what for you is the difference between K-rock and J-rock? Is it actually the pop influence that comes in, or is there actually a difference in the rock aspect?
Yeah, a bit of both, actually, to be honest. But I feel like it's more heavily orientated towards the K-pop. That influence definitely comes through on everything that they do, especially for the music videos and all that. It is definitely a K-pop rock video. if ever I saw one with the way that those videos are shot, but the sound as well. I do like it. Is catchy. It's kind of, you could argue maybe slightly repetitive, but I quite like that. There's a beat to it. There's a groove to it that with Rolling Quartz with most of their songs that I really gravitate towards. It feels, I mean, this sounds kind of like I'm bad a little bit, but it's not. But it feels like they're on like a constant, like the volume's constantly on an 8 and it never goes higher than that. But the song's constantly enjoyable, and I just find myself every time I listen to Rolling Quartz and I have it on in the background, I'm just grooving away, man. You know,
I mean, that's kind of a big element of pop, right? To don't go over the top and to have it very accessible. It's kind of the nature of pop, right?
Yeah, it's a very accessible rock group, I think. And I can tell Howard's puffing his cheeks out. He's got something to say.
Grasping.
I mean, so what I was going to say before, and it's interesting because you've kind of expanded in different directions on what I was thinking, but I'll go back to what I was going to initially say and just see how this plays into what you were saying. In that, for me, what I think, it's like someone took a band who on their own are just a very good rock band. And then everything that's been done in post, you know, like the way they're recorded, the way they're produced, the way their videos are done, the way their makeup is probably done, it all feels like it was done through a more pop system. And this I mean as a positive, because they have the K-pop look, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, love it or hate it, it's clearly very, very successful, and it's fun, it's bright and colorful. That's great. So I don't really care about that, but they look good. Great for them. But musically,
great for us.
I feel like the way that it's mixed, but the way it's mixed, I feel is very much, it's mixed like pop. And I think actually in a weird roundabout way, that's actually giving rock fans what they wanted. In that you listen to a lot of bands like Bandmate and such, like a lot of the thing that people have complained about recently is, oh, it's compressed, oh, it's just too noisy, basically. And the irony is that someone who's used to mixing pop, which is what this feels like, they don't want to turn the guitars up. They want the guitars to be audible and they want it to be musical. So everything feels clear. The beat is punchy because the beat is meant to be punchy because they want you to bob along to it. And it kind of has this weird feel where it's definitely rock music, but the fact that it's not turned up to 11, like all the guitars are cranked up and all that stuff. For what we're used to, you'd say, oh, that sounds less rock because the guitars are not so in your face. The guitars are not so loud. But ironically, it is actually giving us what we want, which is the guitars turned down, everything a bit more dynamic,
everything a
little bit more. Yeah, but I mean, you could say that, but the thing is that like this is where we fall into that thing where you can bounce both ways. It's like, well, we want it louder, and it's like, okay, well now it's too compressed. Oh, we want it less
it's
compressed.
Not just about now louder. It's not. I would just they keep.
Yeah, I am generalizing.
Overall, pretty, like, you know, they don't go out with any extremes. That's the best way I could put it.
I mean, it depends what extremes you're looking for, because sonically, yes, they are less extreme, but I think that makes them more
just
lively.
Talking about sonically. I don't really care about the visuals.
No, but when I say sonically, do you mean like the way it's produced and mixed, or do you mean like the way that they're playing?
It's probably more the production and the mixing, not really what they are playing.
Yeah, see That's where I think that secretly is actually giving people what they want. Because when people talk about like, oh, I love live records, live records are naturally less noisy, loud, and turned up to the max as a studio record because it doesn't have all that kind of compression and such like on it. So in a weird way, I feel like this slightly more poppy style of mixing, it feels more live. It feels more, there's more space for the guitars to breathe. There's more clarity because it isn't as aggressively mixed. I think it's a weird thing. I think it's inadvertently giving people what they want.
Yeah, I actually agree with Howard on this one. It's taken the best aspects of what is K-pop, and there's a lot that puts people off of K-pop, I think, but it's taken all the best aspects of that industry of music and slapping it on like I said, a rock group. Yeah, obviously, if I wanted to listen to obviously me and you have the same taste when it comes to music, Benedict. So I know where you're coming from. Obviously, if I wanted to listen to a rock group, I would want to listen to something that is a little bit harder, that's a little bit more grittier in your face and stuff. And there's loads of bands like that. But there is very, very few, very little bands that have this sound to them, and that's what makes Rolling Quartz unique. Their whole aesthetic.
I do agree.
Yeah, it might not be. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. It might not be your 100% cup of tea of what you want as a rock group, but as a stylistical choice, like there's not many bands that can compare to Rolling Quartz. I think
it would be interesting to hear, like if they would turn up their sound to 11 or whatever the other groups do. And if they would sound similar, would it actually become more boring through that because they lose some of their identity? I don't know. I think I have to listen to some more of their music.
I think there's also the comparative thing because, I mean, for example, like I've never been a fan of like old school metal, like the formative years of metal. That's kind of like the period I least like. But a lot of people talk about it being really heavy. And I think when you listen to it, it doesn't sound heavy because the recordings, they didn't do the things that we now know make sounds heavy. But your mindset, you go into it expecting it to be a certain thing. So you hear it, you compensate in your brain. And like maybe an example I would give, you take a band like Rage Against the Machine. Like Rage Against the Machine, their guitars were never heavy.
I won't do what you told me.
Like their guitar. Yeah, but like
again comes down to your definition of
was
heavy.
Never heavy. But that's kind of my point, is I think this is important because I think that like the real thing is, does it make you want to headbang? Does it basically make you want to let all your energy out? And I think that just depends on whether you are in the right place for it. I mean, like you could say like EDM's not heavy, but people can lose themselves to that. I think the heaviness thing is kind of like, have you kind of like through your tastes, have you programmed yourself to have a particular leaning towards a certain thing as being what feels heavy for you, what you're used to being heavy? I think if you haven't listened to something which is all like really turned up to 11 beforehand and you go into this, then I think you would, I think just the sheer fact there's more bands who are heavy in that other way makes it harder for you to be set up to listen to this and hear it as being heavy. You just kind of mentally hear it against the other songs you maybe got on the playlist and think, oh, well, that's not heavy in the way that these other songs are heavy. But it is heavy just in a different way. You know, like if you listen to a song that came out in 2010 and a song in 1980, the song in 1980 is not going to sound as heavy.
Yeah, it's like Howard just said, it's its own thing. It's its own kind of like subgenre, I would say. Where you've got this like soft poppy Korean rock, and like you said, like Howard said, if you go into this thinking of like some of the modern bands now that are all rocking and stuff like that, then going to listen to Rolling Quartz maybe straight after, you might come away and maybe a little bit underwhelmed by the rock of it. But I think you don't listen to Rolling Quartz kind of for the rock. You listen to them for the genre that they've sort of created and kind of made their own. Which is a thrash of different things. Kind of maybe the best way I would describe Rolling Quartz is maybe like a jack of all trades, master of none. They're doing so many different things, but they don't quite maybe. I mean, you could argue that they mastered their particular sound for sure, but maybe as a general listener coming into it, maybe it's not as heavy as some people want it, maybe not as poppy as other people want it, but. That's actually for me is a positive for Rolling Quartz, because every time I listen to them, it's different. It's something completely new, at least for me anyway.
Well, it's hard to tell
That's an
knowing
interesting-
just 2 songs.
I mean,
There's
yeah,
something new every
there's,
time.
there's that as well. But like I said, I you know, rolling quartz. You're never gonna with rolling quartz. You know, that's
Yeah,
that's
sure.
not
I think
that's
you
not
are.
the thing.
I think you are.
There's
I can't
yeah.
see any reason why not. I think
No,
if
I
you,
didn't want to
if
bring
you-
up. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I think unless again, I think it's just how you program. Again, if you took someone who's been listening to metal that came out in the last 5 years and then you drop them in a list of like metal from like Black Sabbath and stuff, it's not going to sound as heavy. Even if it is as heavy, it's not going to sound as heavy because it's recorded in a way that is not doing what we now consider to be heavy. It doesn't make it less heavy. It's just that's not the way that sonically it was mixed back then. And so I think it is just, it's like it's contrast. Whatever you've listened to before or you're used to is always going to set your palate, but it doesn't mean something's not heavy. It just means that you've been
But that's why
training your ear in a certain
it was interesting for me that you said, like, when you were younger, you really disliked metal. And when I was younger, I really disliked like the old school rock. And that's,
So
I think you said that, right?
I didn't say that when I was younger. I don't think I said that I disliked metal when I was younger.
Like
I said that I did.
Old metal.
Oh yeah, no, we're talking about metal from like before I was born.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, I was born in '85.
Okay. Yeah. But that's the same I feel about rock music from that time period. And I think, yeah, that really is the determining factor here. Because to me, I didn't want to bring this group up because we know how Howard feels about it, the warning. But to me, you know, I can see some similarities of it being in that slower, a bit more typical old school type rock. But the warning to me has that sound over top that I'm kind of missing in the Rolling Quartz a little bit. But again, that's not really a bad thing. It's just that I'm coming from a metal background, really like that sound. And yeah.
I think Rolling Quartz's target audience is like the casual listener, though. I don't think they're targeting probably metalheads like me and you. I think their target
audience. It's more pop fans or more rock fans?
I would say it's a bit of everybody. I feel like they're targeting every audience all at once, but maybe probably won't grab everybody from all those different.
I genuinely think if you're the sort of person of which I've come across, and obviously I've often been fighting on the opposite side of this, but I think anyone who's been like listening to albums that we've been listening to and saying, I prefer the live version, I don't like the album version, it's too compressed, it's too produced. Those people are often very much into heavy music. And this is exactly what they're asking for. It sounds much more just like real music in that term that they would describe it. I mean, to be honest, I love studio production. Sorry, I just do. But for me, this gives them what they want. It just sounds like that's what a guitar sounds like in the wild. It's more in
studio
with
production can be vastly different depending on how you do it.
Exactly. I'm not saying one's better. I'm just saying that I think that the idea that Rolling Quartz in some way is not as heavy or like it's more poppy or it's not designed for real rock fans or it's designed with a pop. It has a pop sheen, but I don't think it's like I said. I think it's brought it full circle. It's got a pop sheen that ironically makes it very appropriate for fans of heavy music.
So the one thing I will credit Rolling Quartz for is I think they're perfect the way they are. And what I really like about their sound is it feels the quality in the music videos, but also the quality in the sound far surpasses anything probably with like 95% of the rock groups that put out content. Like it definitely feels like a artist that's had like got the most expensive badass producer ever mixer to like mix this song, and it just oozes expensive money quality which you don't really get from like your average rock group too much. And you it's that sound maybe that kind of betrays your ears a little bit when you listen to them, because I feel like a lot of us probably listening to rock and metal aren't used to like real. So we say real.
It is very clean.
It is very clean.
It is very clean.
It is very touched up, very I don't know what the right expression
is that maybe what you guys mean? Is it maybe that it feels a bit sterile? It feels a little bit too clinical, a little bit too clean.
I think that's what I mean by it doesn't really go to extremes.
Okay.
That's kind of
I think that's one of the reasons that me and Benedict differ on this one, because I feel like it's maybe a lack of it for Benedict, but for me, that's the whole reason why I like them so much, because
Well,
there's
it's
no
very
other.
clean.
It's very yeah. There's no other band that sounds like that.
That's how I feel about hearing two songs.
2 songs, yeah. We gotta,
I was about to say, we're kind of like being a bit. It's like we're really sort of like squeezing this episode out.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons why I like them, because they take all these different subgenres, like again with the Korean, and I feel like the Korean aspect is the most important here, because it's not a Japanese group. It doesn't have that Japanese sound. It has that Korean sheen to it. It's all over this band and this track, and for me, that's what makes them so unique. I like that. You know, it's a Korean rock group trying to be Korean instead of like something like again, I apologies, 18 Fevers or Rum Kicks that are trying to be like an English punk band. They are trying to be a Korean rock band.
I would actually like to know if maybe you are watching this and you are a massive K-pop fan. Do you like Rolling Quartz, or like what do you like about Rolling Quartz? Is it actually the rock aspect?
I'm not sure that the K-pop aspect, I don't particularly, no offense, I don't particularly like pushing it, because I really don't feel it has much in common with K-pop, if I'm honest with you. I think the only thing, I mean, it's catchy like K-pop, but then again, a lot of music's catchy. So I think it has like, it's really cleanly recorded like K-pop. I think it has all the hallmarks of coming from the same place, but it's so different. And yeah, they have that look, but then again, you know, countries have a fashion, and you know, like in the same way that, you know, I mean, let's face it, J-pop and J-rock bands, there is a certain crossover in the fashion between them as well. I think that a lot of the things that like that Rolling Quartz has in common with K-pop are really proxy things that, yeah, okay, there might be a certain aspect, but I think they are much more a rock group. They are a rock group benefiting from some of the rather positive trends, you know, the fashionable look, the focus on clean recording, and the love of catchy melodies. They're getting a little bit of that proxy benefit, but I do feel like they are much more in line with a J-rock group than they are with a K-pop group. But to be honest, I think basically most of the J-rock groups and the K-rock groups, I think basically what they're doing is taking the Western model of rock music and revolutionizing it by attention to detail. You know, fucking finishing their arrangements, putting in good bass lines, hiring musicians who can do something interesting. I think, you know, J-pop is very different from Western pop. K-pop is somewhere in between, but J-rock and K-rock, I think they have a lot more in common with Western rock. It's just, for me, it's a quality difference, and you know, writing as well. I mean, J-rock, I love the fact that the chord patterns and everything are so much more exquisite, and you know, the melodies are much more developed. Again, I think that K-rock seems to be somewhere in the middle, where it's got the accessibility of Western rock, but with still that attention of detail that Japanese rock has.
Yeah. I mean, that's
sorry.
Again, that's probably one of the things I do disagree on you with. I like the fact you said obviously they're K-rock, but you make it sound like, you know, the K-pop and the K-rock should be separate, and that's one of the things that's one of the things I love about Rolling Quartz, though, is because they blend the two so epically and seamlessly. It's the best. It's the best of both.
What do musically they have of K-pop? I can see, like, when we say like clean sounding recording, I get that. When we say catchiness, but then catchiness is something that appears in a lot of types of rock and pop. What is it that you feel is fundamentally K-pop? Maybe if I understood that better, I'd be able to better understand.
Again, the sounds, the recording, the mixing, the tonal shifts of the songs as well. Like we've just discussed before, they don't go overboard. They definitely keep it within their own little zone. There's nothing.
But that's just everything that isn't. That's just everything that isn't heavy rock, though. Wouldn't that all classify as just not going overboard?
Depends where you look at it, but you know as well as I do the influences of K-pop and how that is spreaded through Rolling Quartz. You don't need to be like the best person or best band in the world to see and hear the evidence of that seeping through the band. They don't.
I think it's very surface. I don't really think there is any K-pop under the hood. I think it's very, very much just surface elements. Look K-pop-ish by proxy, but I don't really think there's anything significantly K-poppy about them in the
I just
actual
don't know
songs.
enough K-pop, or like, can you tell me what is the essence of K-pop then? Because we're like kind of talking about that.
Yeah,
I
so I
just don't
guess
know
this
enough
depends what you
K-pop
think
to tell you.
K-pop is, maybe. I mean, maybe because there is this thing.
I don't want to take an approach like Howard's doing now and compare K-pop or K-rock to J-rock and J-pop, because I feel like that's unfair. Like, we shouldn't really make that, because we all know we're all lovers of J-pop and J-rock probably more than we
Yeah,
are
but
of
like there are
listening.
certain
But that's
things.
for
If
them
we're
to
going
look
to
like
use
a
the terms,
negative,
though, we
right?
have to be able to define the terms if we're going
Like
to use
if you're listening to a song, you're in your mind, okay, this sounds like a more J-rock or more K-rock. But what is it that puts your mind in that direction, you know?
I mean, it is a very broad stroke of things. I would say that for me, K-pop is probably the easiest to define because it is the genre that seems to repeat the same tropes mostly. And a lot of it is very similar chorus styles. You know, K-pop has become rather comfortable with certain repetitive chorus styles and certain types of pre-choruses. There's very common tropes and common styles of production in K-pop, and especially the music videos. But yeah, there are certain things like that. I think that for me, J-pop and J-rock tend to be extremely broad and open, and I think K-rock is there's been a lot of history of rock music in Korea, but it is still a area that hasn't quite fledged yet, which is it hasn't really quite broken out in the way that these other three genres perhaps have. And so I feel like in a lot of ways it is dabbling with different things. I mean, like Neon mentioned about 18 Fevers and Rum Kicks, and yes, I say they very much have this sort of like UK punk sound. And I think we're still at that phase where the genre is fledgling enough that they are still like each band is pulling from a very different place. And I don't think there is a uniform thing that makes Korean rock bands. I think the jury's still out. So I think a lot of the aspects that we see are going to be very, very sporadic and different, and there's going to be a lack of there's going to be a difficulty judging them. I mean, we're talking about those bands. There was a band that came out recently called Idiots. I've translated the name so I could read it in Korean, and it was something like idioche. It's like it's virtually the same word when you read the Korean. But
sounds like Spanish, Italian.
The funny thing,
idioche.
Idioche. And this band came out with their single. I think it was their first single, and they looked everything about their music video, their whole setup. They looked exactly like a J-rock band. You know, they had the whole look, everything, their fashion. They looked like a J-rock band. I think the Korean bands at the moment, they're all kind of like sourcing their inspirations from very wildly different places, and you know, I think the scene will have to develop more before we start to see common trends building up amongst the bands. But this is that exciting time when we have these bands and they seem to be picking things from wildly different places. So that's the way it looks to me. I think it's harder to judge than any of the other three scenes.
Well, I'm very interested to hearing more Rolling Quartz because I was quite intrigued by what Neon had to say. And like I want to listen to them with the focus, not expecting like a blasting rock sound, but more something new, unique, you know, their individual style.
If you go into Rolling Quartz knowing what you're gonna get, if you love K-pop and you love K-rock, then
Well, you don't love K-pop, right?
I have a soft spot for K-pop. I make
Okay.
I make no secret of that.
Didn't I show you a K-pop song once and you fucking hated it?
Oh, there's definitely songs I hate from it's actually quite funny. I actually got a guy in my Discord called Paul. Howard will know who he is, and he actually I think he requested some Blackpink a couple of times. And he requested like some Blackpink like 3 times in a row, and I turned around and I said, "Mate, I really don't like this." But you know, he was persistent, and he kept requesting, and he requested some more K-pop bands, and some of the other ones that he requested, I really actually quite liked. I actually really like it. Going down that barrel hole and seeing more K-pop really kind of does allow me, and again, Howard's opinion on this, but it really does allow me to see in the J-pop community and the songs kind of where the influence of K-pop is kind of seeping in, because without that context or without knowing more about the K-pop scene, you wouldn't maybe sort of notice the difference with J-pop, but there's definitely like a back and forwards between one borrowing from the other. And I definitely, maybe less so now. I think maybe I would say about 6 years ago was more where the J-pop was kind of like taken from K-pop. But I feel like it's kind of that hype and that trend is starting to slowly die out now and slowly dissipate over time.
J-pop seeped into J-rock and J-metal, and now K-pop is taking from J-rock.
Well, they take from each other.
It's all
exactly.
evolving.
I think they all. I mean, again, when we're defining the differences, it's only like common trends that you see appear in any one of those scenes. So there are certain common trends you'll see in J-pop. There are certain common trends you'll see in J-rock and K-pop. But yeah, the truth is that there's so much that goes into making that. None of these things are just like, a static set of borders. They all of these genres contain quite different things, and so there is going to be certain degrees of borrowing. And like Neon says, I think probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I mean, there was bands like, was it XG, who they're like that Japanese, desperately wanted to be a K-pop group, and they've been quite popular, and I've got to be honest, I can't stand them. It drives me fucking nuts.
My girlfriend absolutely loves them. There's the one singer in that band who's got like a really deep voice, like proper. She just like every time.
Kind of Barry White.
Yeah, and every time he comes on, she's like, oh. So and I'm just stood there in the room like.
Watch my next song have really low vocals.
Low vocals, but not in that way. more screechy.
Like, Neon's just become like the bra emoji. Bra.
Yeah, I'm like bra. I'm like, I can hear you. Come on. But that again, that just shows you how far-reaching like Korean pop is. Like, obviously, Howard may not like it. Like, we as a general collective may not like it, apart from myself. But you can't deny, obviously, how much that seeped in.
I do basically like what K-pop has done for like erasing a lot of the stoic boredom that was coming into Western pop. I just think the problem is it arrived, it had this bright, colorful image, and then it just didn't really, ever since they got like super successful, like K-pop used to develop a lot back in the day, but ever since it's become like massively internationally successful, it's like, don't fuck with the formula. And it's just kind of remained very much the same video over and over again. And it's a shame, because I think like a lot of the initial spark like drained very quickly and it's become repetitive. But there are some great K-pop groups out there. It's just that like once you know like the groups who are really good, you don't have to listen to all of them, because most of them are just trying to impersonate that.
If they would invent a bit more, that would bring people like me in. Because, I'm listening to every K-pop song I'm trying out. It's like kind of the same.
I think that's why K-rock is rising, because it's filling in that space.
Because it's filling in that gap. Yeah. Howard's answer there was like the best. Like, when you got that person comes into a room that you don't really like, but you have to put on that face. Like, they ask you, why? I always feel like you don't like me, and you reply, of course I like you, yeah. And then as soon as they got out voice. Of course. And then as soon as they've left the room, you're like, that's to your mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, I mean, like, because back in the day, like, actually, ironically, before 2012, actually around about 2012 when it kicked off, was when I was living with a Korean girlfriend. And of course, there was a lot of Korean culture in our home and everything. And so, I remember like, sort of following K-pop at that time, along with the Japanese pop, and seeing how it was quite inventive back then. And it just kind of, and then there are some groups who like really show all, kind of like they're the best stereotypes. Bands like, groups like Twice. Twice, you always know you're going to get something reliably good from Twice. But
I quite like Twice, to be fair.
They're fun. But it's like, you kind of know they're just kind of like the peak of a mountain of other groups who are basically trying to do exactly the same thing. And Dreamcatcher are great. They bring in the rock aspect as well.
Yeah.
By the way,
Dreamcatcher.
I think the free version of Zoom has 5 minutes left.
Yeah, I was going to say
5 minutes correctly.
Yeah, 5 minutes left. Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly.
Free version of Zoom. has
We're not
changed,
worthy.
it's updated, and now it doesn't
last
show
one
us the
just cut
timer
us
anymore.
off.
Yeah.
No, it didn't really cut us off. That was just Howard going, "Fuck this shit, Neon."
People were not praising Trident strongly enough in that video, so I had to edit it.
This is had to interfere.
But is there any other like? I mean, there are some fantastic Korean bands out there. I'm just wondering if there's any other bands that you guys know, because we kind of, I think we're all fairly much kind of hoping to find more Korean bands.
I think
I did the episode on Korea, right?
Actually, when we did that, because you were like the newest to it, you were the one who we sent out to find Korean bands.
I haven't really dove into more Korean bands, but I had Slant, which is a great, like a pretty raw punk rock group, because punk is also big in Korea, apparently.
Very big.
One of the classic bands from back in the day, who a lot of my Korean friends will always reference, is a band called Crying Nut, and I was
that's what I do every time. Crying a Nut.
I'll put it this way: having seen their sense of humor, I wouldn't be surprised if they that wasn't a mistake name, but they did a song called the Pigeon Song, and it is just the funniest thing ever. But musically, it's really good. It has full layered vocal harmonies and everything, and then it just goes crazy rock. And it needs to be said, we don't see how much talent there is there. But I mean, this came up in my interview with Yeowon from Rumkicks, because we were talking about the fact there is talent, but a lot of the time in Korea, there isn't infrastructure, isn't the live houses, there isn't the audiences for them to go to. And I'm hoping that with the rising of these bands, like we're seeing, Idiots, Rolling Quartz, the punk bands, 18 Fevers, Rumkicks, I'm hoping that the infrastructure will appear, the spaces will appear where people want something different from K-pop, and the scene will rise. I hope.
Here's hoping. I mean, go back to what we were saying as well. If you haven't checked out Rolling Quartz, I highly recommend it. Do it. Don't listen to these two knobheads, negative ninnies that they are.
I wanted to listen to more.
I was so angry then that I literally choked on my coffee. I literally choked on my coffee. If you rewind that, you can see me choking on coffee.
Why would they rewind that? Why would they want to watch that again?
Watching me suffer, man. Plus, we get more audience retention if they go back and rewatch parts.
Yes.
Shut the fuck up.
Fair enough. But seriously, go and check out Rolling Quartz. I highly recommend it. They are a very unique band. Definitely divide opinion, I think, as you can tell from this video. But all in all, go and give them a listen. Go and give them a shout. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it. I mean, if you're not, again, I feel like it comes where you kind of come from. If you're not really a metalhead and you kind of like rock and just like to chill out stuff, I think they'll be perfect for many people. I mean, if you're coming into this one as a metalhead, like a really intense metalhead, maybe not for you. But as a rock band,
give it a chance. You never know.
Still give it a chance. I think you'll really enjoy it. And if you're into Korean pop as well.
Just listen to the new Ray Rie song. That's amazing as well, and it wouldn't
awesome,
guess as a metal fan that I like that.
I mean, you'll be sold 2 seconds into watching these girls anyway, because they are all fucking gorgeous.
They have a couple of selling points. Can I just say before we wrap up, what is it with the drummer and staring directly at the camera? I feel like
I've said that so many
money
times
or something. I feel like
they all
money
staring in the camera.
I tell you what, the drummer in Rolling Quartz has those like fuck me eyes that you just.
No, she has those you owe me money eyes. She looks like.
No, me and you are obviously imagining totally different things. I mean, whatever gets you off, Howard.
I'll get off on owing people money. What the fuck? Anyway,
I'm glad this episode is over, guys.
Howard likes to get beaten up by Korean drummers. There you go.
What the fuck? I wasn't saying I was telling them I owe people money.
That information. Don't forget to keep your ears to the east. Smash a like on this.
That's the ending? Holy
yes,
shit.
That is the ending. Smash a like on this video as well. Yeah, smash a like on this video as well. I feel like we're going to fucking need it for this one. Share it. And we'll see you guys next time.
Keep your ears to the east. Bye.
Yeah. No, I'm just surprised by all the kinky things.
3,
How are they
2,
Jesus.
1. Fuck off.